All right, we're going to read chapter 27 of Island of the Blue Dolphins today. Before we read, though, I want to talk about a couple things that we should be aware of while reading the chapter. So the first is the vocabulary words that we always try to keep our eyes peeled for. So let's write down what those words are. So here are 5 words that we want to look for as we read chapter 27. You can pause this video to write those down. Rumble, thrust, gleam, vanquish, crouch. Go ahead and hit pause, write those down, and then resume the video. In addition to the vocabulary words, I also want to be aware of what my activity is going to be when I'm done so that I can kind of plan it out while I read. So we're going to create a 6-panel comic strip. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that comic strip is going to show 2 major natural disasters that Corona experiences throughout the chapter. We want to, just like a comic strip would do, we want to sequence those events. So what's something that we can do first, second, third? So we need to capture basically 6 different events or stages that occur so that we can best communicate what's going on in this chapter. So we'll maybe take some notes on that too as we read. We're reading chapter 27 in our book. So if you do not have your book, again, you need to pause the video and go ahead and grab it so that you can follow along with me as I read. Chapter 27. After the fierce storms of winter came many days when the wind did not blow. The air was so heavy that it was hard to breathe, and the sun so hot that the sea was like a sun itself, too bright to look at. The last day of this weather, I took the canoe from the cave and paddled around the reef to the sand spit. I did not take Rontuaru with me, for while he liked the cold, he did not like heat. It was good that he did not come with me. The day was the hottest of all, and the sea shimmered with red light. Over my eyes, I wore shields made of wood with small slits in them to see through. No gulls were flying. The otter lay quiet in the kelp, and the little crabs were deep in their holes. I pulled the canoe up on the beach, which was wet but steaming from the sun. Early every spring, I took the canoe to the sand spit and spread fresh pitch in the cracks that needed it. I worked all this morning, stopping from time to time to cool off in the sea. As the sun climbed high, I turned the canoe over and crawled under it and went to sleep in the shade. I had not slept long when I was suddenly awakened by what I thought was thunder. But upon looking out from my shelter, I saw that there were no clouds in the sky. Yet the rumbling sound kept on. It came from a distance, from the south, and, as I listened, grew louder. I jumped to my feet. The first thing that caught my gaze was the gleaming stretch of beach on the southern slope of the sand spit. Never in my life on the island had I seen the tide so low. Rocks and small reefs that I did not know were under the sea stood bare in the blinding light. It was like another place. I had gone to sleep and wakened on another island. So I think there's a couple words there in that part. So what's going on? Well, she was asleep under the canoe, and she was awakened by a rumble. It says the rumbling sound kept on. She said that sound reminded her of thunder. So I'm going to say it's a noise like thunder. The next word I saw as I read that part is that when she looked out at the sea, her gaze was caught by a gleaming stretch of beach on the southern slope of the sand spit. A gleaming stretch of beach. It's like a shining, it's very hot, not clouds. The sun could reflect off the sand easily. The tide was low, she said. That means that the water was way, way far out, farther out than she had ever seen before. The air was suddenly tight around me. There was a faint sound, as if some giant animal were sucking the air in and in through its teeth. The rumbling came closer out of an empty sky, filling my ears. Then, beyond the gleam of the beach, there's gleam again, the shine of the beach, and the bare rocks and reef, more than a league beyond them, I saw a great white crest moving down upon the island. The crest of the wave, that's that white part of the wave. It seemed to move slowly between the sea and the sky, but it was the sea itself. I tore off the shields I wore over my eyes. In terror, I ran along the sand spit. I ran and stumbled and got up and ran again. The sand shuddered under my feet as the first wave struck. Spray fell around me like rain. It was filled with pieces of kelp and small fish. By following the curve of the sand spit, I could reach the cove and the trail that led to the mesa, but there was no time for this. Water was already rushing around my knees, pulling from every direction. The cliff rose in front of me, and though the rocks were slippery with sea moss, I found a hold for a hand and then a foot. Thus, a step at a time, I dragged myself upwards. So what's going on is there's a huge tidal wave, like a tsunami, and she's trying to find shelter so she doesn't become killed by it. So she's climbing up the side of a cliff. That's her only best bet, is to get high. The crest of the wave passed under me and roared on towards Coral Cove. For a time there was no sound. Then the sea began to seek its old place, running backward in long, foaming currents. Before it could do so, another great wave moved out of the south. Perhaps it would be even bigger than the first one. I looked up. The cliff rose straight above me. I could climb no farther. So after that first wave hits, here comes another one. I stood facing the rock with my feet on a narrow ledge and one hand thrust deep into a crack. So she's holding on to this cliff. Her feet just have a little bit of room to stand on, and her hand is thrust into a crack. So I imagine she's going to want to have a really good grip. So she's probably putting in there like very deep. So she's putting her hand in. She's thrusting it in deeply, maybe forcefully. Over my shoulder, I could see the wave coming. It did not come fast, for the other wave was still running out. For a while, I thought that it would not come at all because the two suddenly met beyond the sand spit. The first wave was trying to reach the sea, and the second one was struggling towards the shore. Like two giants, they crashed against each other. They rose high in the air, bending first one way and then the other. There was a roar as if great spears were breaking in a battle, and in the red light of the sun, the spray that flew around them looked like blood. That's a good metaphor. Or I guess it was a simile. She said, like two giants, they crashed against each other. The waves are battling like giants. Slowly, the second wave forced the first one backward, rolled slowly over it, and then, as a victor drags the vanquished, moved in towards the island. So the first smaller wave was going back out, and this second larger wave was coming in, and the back and forth, the push back and forth between these two giants. Finally, the larger wave wins, rolls over the small wave, and continues towards the island. It says, as a victor drags the vanquished. Well, a victor is the winner, so the vanquished must be the loser. So the word vanquish must mean to lose. Or defeat. The word loser would be the vanquished. The wave struck the cliff. It sent long tongues streaming around me so that I could neither see nor hear. The tongues of water licked into all the crevices, dragged at my hand and at my bare feet, gripping the ledge. They rose high above me along the face of the rock, up, and then spent themselves against the sky and fell back, hissing past me to join the water rushing on toward the cove. Another really good metaphor she's using there. She's comparing the water, the waves, to tongues. Suddenly, all around me was quiet. In the quiet, I could hear my heart pounding, and I knew that my hand still had its hold on the rock and that I was alive. Night came, and though I was afraid to leave the cliff, I knew that I could not stay there until morning, that I would go to sleep and fall. Neither could I find my way home, so I climbed down from the ledge and crouched at the foot of the cliff. Crouch. So when you crouch, you bend down or squat. So she climbs down the cliff, but she doesn't want to walk in the dark, so she kind of huddles down, crouches at the bottom of the cliff. Dawn was windless and hot, so she stayed there all night until the sun rose. The sandspit was strewn with hills of kelp. Dead fish and lobsters and pink crabs lay everywhere, and 2 small whales were stranded against the rock walls of the cove. Far up the trail that led to the mesa, I found things from the sea. Rontuaru was waiting at the fence. When I crawled under it, he jumped upon me and followed me around, never letting me out of his sight. I was glad to be home on the high headland, where the waves had not come. I had been gone only from one sun to the next, yet it was like many suns, like the time I had gone away in the canoe. Most of the day I slept, but I had many dreams, and when I awoke, everything around me was strange. The sea made no sounds on the shore. The gulls were quiet. The earth seemed to be holding its breath, as though it were waiting for something terrible to happen. At dusk, I was coming back from the spring with a basket of water on my shoulder, walking along the cliff with Rontuaru. Everywhere the ocean was smooth and yellow, and it lay against the island as if it was very tired. The gulls were still quiet, perched on their rocky nests. Slowly, the earth began to move. It moved away from my feet, and for a moment I seemed to be standing in the air. Water tipped out of the basket and trickled over my face. Then the basket fell to the ground. Not knowing what I did, thinking foolishly that another wave was upon me, I began to run. But it was a wave of earth, and it rippled under me along the cliff. As I ran, another wave overtook me. Looking back, I saw many of them coming out of the south like waves in the sea. The next thing I remember, I was lying on the ground, and Rontuaru was beside me, and we were both trying to get to our feet. Then we were running again towards the headland, towards a house that kept moving off into the distance. The opening under the fence had caved in, and I had to pull the rocks away before we could crawl through. Night came, but the earth still rose and fell like a great animal breathing. I could hear rocks tumbling from the cliff, falling down into the sea. All night as we lay there in the house, the earth trembled and rocks fell, yet not the big one on the headland, which would have fallen if those who make the world shake had been really angry with us. In the morning, the earth was quiet once more, and a fresh wind that smelled of kelp blew out of the northern sea. Oh, that was a strange couple of days for Karana, wasn't it? We need to go back and reflect on what is going on with the activity. We need to do a 6-panel comic strip with these events. So I'm going to number and plan out. One, two, three, four, five, six for my panels. I think the easiest way to do this would be to think about what is the first thing I'm going to write and what is the last thing. So in the beginning, what was Karana doing? Karana was at the beach by herself. She did not take Rontuaru because it was so hot, right? And she was working on her canoe, right? So I'm just writing notes here. I'm not writing complete sentences. When I write my actual work, I'll do complete sentences. So I'll start there, and I will finish. Well, she's experiencing lots of earthquakes and aftershocks, right? So she's talked about how the earth trembled all night. So maybe my last frame or panel, I'm going to do something about the earth continuing to shake until it finally stopped in the morning. And these 4 middle panels, I'll probably want to think about what's going on with the tsunami and the earthquake, right? I think that the tsunami had a little bit more going on, so I might only do 1 panel for the earthquake. And I might talk about the tsunami on these 3 panels. So when she's working on her the beach and she's working on the canoe, what causes her to notice the tsunami, where there was that rumbling sound, and then she sees a white crest. So I might say something about the rumble and the white crest. So the crest of the wave, remember, if we think about a wave as far as like, there's a picture of a wave, this would be the crest as it kind of goes over and kind of foams out. That top part, right? Oops, right there. So she looks out, she sees a huge crest coming towards her, the rumble. Maybe we could write about how she runs to the cliff. And that there was 2 tidal waves. She's finally able to go back home, and the next day there's an earthquake. So a lot of things going on. Karana interprets the gods punishing for some reason. All right, so then you're going to go over here, and you are going to write your text in this area below. So each of these panels has a spot for you to write what you drew or what's going on in that panel. And then there's a spot for you to make a picture. So I guess I could demonstrate really quickly what that might look like. I'll try to use a pen so that it turns out. Okay, so then in my notes here, Karana working on, so complete sentence down that I'm writing on here, right? So I wrote, Karana works on her canoe during a scorching summer day. So then I would just kind of draw, I envision her canoe being upside down on the beach. And then there's Karana. Maybe she's, I don't know. She's doing something. I guess skirt on. Oh, she had like some weird sunglasses on. She had like a piece of wood that she made the sunglasses, right? Maybe I'll draw the sun. Some waves in the background. Okay. Of course, I would color it and all that. Okay. So then next panel, right? You guys got it.